Good afternoon. I'm Chris Rivera. I'm the President, CEO, and Chairman of the Board at Nativis, a local Seattle-based medtech company. I'm here today at Life Science Innovation Northwest, the 16th annual event. And I'm pleased to be here with Luke Timmerman, the founder and CEO of the Timmerman Report. Luke, great to see you.
Good to be here.
Tell me a little bit more about the Timmerman Report. What are you doing?
So a little over a year ago, I started my own subscription newsletter for biotech professionals. And so I provide about 2 or 3 articles a week to executives, to investors, and it sells for $149 a year. Subscription model. So it's a little different than a lot of media that you see on the free web.
And how's it been going?
Going really well. Hit that goal of more than 1,000 subscribers in the first year.
Fantastic.
So I'm really happy.
Congratulations. Tell us and tell our audience a little bit more about your background in biotech and publications.
Yeah, so I got started about 15 years ago writing at the Seattle Times about biotech. I knew nothing about biology at the time, or even if this is what I wanted to do, but I just got out of the office and met a lot of people doing interesting things in biopharmaceuticals, medical devices, and learned and decided to make this my specialty. And after Seattle Times, I went to Bloomberg News for a while, and then joined a startup, Xconomy, and before starting my own newsletter.
So in 15 years, what is some of the most amazing things you've seen?
Oh, I think the immunotherapy revolution in cancer has been remarkable. We here in Seattle have a long history, as you know, of research at the Fred Hutch. It's the home of bone marrow transplantation, and a lot of attempts to harness the immune system against cancer go back there many, many years. Dendreon was a trailblazing company in this field that I followed for many years as well. But in the last 5 years, we've really seen this tip in a much bigger way. This is no longer a fringe idea. This is now becoming a really fundamental way in which we are, oncologists, researchers are tackling cancer.
Beyond immunotherapy, what are some of the other big changes you've seen in the industry in the last 10, 15 years?
Oh, here locally, the emergence of global health with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation at the center. They've spun off lots of interesting vaccine work, diagnostic work that has potential use in the developing world as well as here in some cases. So that's been a big one. There's just a lot of things coming off of fundamental technologies like DNA sequencing, the amazing things you can do computationally with that genomic data. Just a couple of examples of regional strength.
And in the last, from your perspective, you have not only just a regional or statewide perspective, you also see the industry nationally, but also globally. How do you see and where do you see Seattle and Washington State stack up or rank in innovation, and where do you see some of the future advantages of this region?
Well, so the top 2 hubs in the United States are Boston and San Francisco, and they really do, I think, stand above all the other hubs in terms of the volume of activity, the number of entrepreneurs, the venture capital, but there is great science occurring at basic research centers all over the U.S. And Seattle has a long-standing investment there, the University of Washington, Fred Hutch, and other places. I'd say Seattle is probably in that 2nd to 3rd tier. There's definitely, we could see more entrepreneurial applications of the research that's here, more capital coming into the region. But going back to that earlier point about the Fred Hutch, there's a long history here of excellence in immunology and cancer biology. And those are good things to be good at in the world that we live in now, where there's so much potential for immunotherapy to give us these long-lasting, durable remissions that we've been striving for all these years.
So at today's conference, the inaugural class of Washington's Life Science Hall of Fame members were inducted into the Hall of Fame. We saw the founders of ultrasound imaging, bone marrow transplantation, arguably immunotherapy company, Lee Hood DNA sequencer, cardiac defibrillators. What are some of the highlights you saw, and were you aware of all that, and where do you see this going in the future?
Well, I was aware of all that, just from having lived here and covered the industry a long time, but it really is amazing to see them all up there together on the stage. And I really like that reference from something that I had written many years ago about the fifth Beatle, that Steve Gillis is sort of like that unacknowledged guy, along with a Bill Gates and a Paul Allen and a Jeff Bezos. Everybody knows that they created game-changing companies and built industries here in Seattle. Fewer people realize what Steve Gillis accomplished with the founding of Immunex in the 80s and all the companies that spun off of that. Enbrel today is one of the 5 best-selling drugs in the world, and that came from Seattle. And not many people know that. It does tremendous good for a lot of people with rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune diseases. The medical ultrasound, the DNA sequencer, the bone marrow transplantation. I mean, if you add up the number of lives affected around the world by all of these inventions and innovations that came from this region, it's remarkable. It may not be quite up there with jet travel in terms of global impact, but boy, it's remarkable.
It has to be tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people that have been touched by those innovations.
For sure.
Great. So, Luke, in the future, where do you see the new trends? We saw Lee Hood's new company, Aerovale, feature today. A real focus on wellness and prevention. Where do you see that technology and that idea going?
Well, I should say that I'm, among my many other activities, I am writing a biography of Lee Hood.
I think I heard that.
So he's best known as the founding father, driving force, so to speak, of the team that developed the first automated DNA sequencer. And that was a critical enabling technology that leads us down so many paths of interesting science as well as personalized medicine. We're just now getting to the point where hospitals, clinics can actually get sequence data and do something with it to affect your health. So that's what Hood means when he's talking about scientific wellness. Now, he's trying to push the edge even further into some directions that maybe regulators and payers and hospitals aren't entirely ready for yet. So I think this will take a long time to really play out. This isn't something that I would expect would go public next year or become an obvious anchor of the Seattle economy right away. But long term, it's a big idea.
Any last general thoughts or words of wisdom for the audience out there listening and learning more about the innovation here, but also where Seattle is and where we're going?
Well, it's the most exciting time that I've had a chance to cover the industry in my 15 years. When you look at the range of possibilities with immunotherapy, with gene therapy, gene editing, the CRISPR-Cas9 story that many people have heard, the RNA-based therapies, liquid biopsy technologies, again, that spring off of this enabling technology with DNA sequencing. It's really impressive. The industry has matured a lot. It still has some problems with pricing controversies and public outreach being another one. Not many people understand what this industry is about and what it does.
What can people do to help better understand that?
Well, it's hard. In the internet economy, people, there's not a giant audience for stories about the newest drug coming out that might affect a small group of patients. So as a result, a lot of these companies might find it difficult to get their stories out in front of a mass audience. That's partly an issue with the way the media is structured today and consumer reading habits.
So as the CEO of a relatively small yet 14-year-old startup company, how do I get my message out? What's your recommendation?
Yeah, I guess it's good to stay current, follow the key people on social media. Twitter is a big one in biotech. There's a very vibrant community of people conveying the news and commenting on it there. And if you're not on that, I think you're missing a lot of the key influential discussions that are occurring in the industry. So familiarize yourself with social media would be a good first step, and then get to know some of the key individual reporters who might be interested in your story. People like myself or Matt Herper at Forbes. I also write at Forbes. So there's figuring out where some of these people might be interested in your story are and what kind of readers they can reach.
Sounds like great advice. Luke, it's great to see you as always. Thanks for coming. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Chris.
Again, Chris Chavera from Life Science Innovation Northwest here in Seattle, Washington. Have a great afternoon.